I'm a biologist. My background is plant ecology. I started fires on the Great Plains. It was really fun. I started teaching at a college in Massachusetts. I was focusing on the students who don't want to be scientists when they grow up, right? And we all know science literacy is important for everyone. But I realized somewhere along the lines that so I actually remember the moment. I was standing in front of class, I was teaching them about the stages of the cell cycle, mitosis, and I was trying to use issues to help them understand why this was important. So I was using cancer. Cancer is a cell cycle gone awry. And so I thought I was, proto-oncogenes and prophase and and I looked out at the students, and my mom would say they look like deer in headlights. And I realized they didn't need more information from me. Like, they have access to the world's knowledge in their pockets, but also nonsense. If one day, when they are impacted by cancer, was I giving them what they needed to know? Would they even remember it, first of all, because they weren't? What they really needed from me was to be able to sort through the nonsense online, learn who was the more reliable sources, and hopefully guide themselves to better information that could help them make better decisions. So I altered my teaching, and I started teaching about critical thinking and science literacy and information literacy and all those wonderful things that I think we all know are important. But I also realized that if I was going to teach them how information works, I need to teach them about misinformation. Because what better way to learn how reliable information works than to learn to spot the bad stuff? So this is what happens when a biologist starts to study misinformation. This famous quote here, right? Nothing in biology makes sense except in the light of evolution. And that's true about misinformation. So that's what we're going to do, is try to understand our misinformation environment and our susceptibility to it through the lens of biology. Also, if you have any questions during the process, please feel free, raise your hand, say something. We can make this a conversation. Misinformation. Not just because Dory is speaking English, but also because, so this is the below the photic zone. There's no light in the deep ocean. And so about 3/4 of the organisms down there are bioluminescent. They use it to mate, they use it to find food. And the anglerfish has a lure. It's literally a lure. Here, there's food here, come here. And it's right into the jaws. So communication is about sending and receiving signals. Anytime there is the exchange of information, someone could use that information, alter the signal for its own benefit. Communication is not about, hold on, can I do this? Communication is not about the truth as much as it is about influence. So the communication model goes like this. There's the sender, which sends a message, and then the receiver, which has to discriminate between the message. Do I believe this? What do I do? Do I act on it? And vice versa. So I like to say that misinformation and information ride shotgun. Like, they ride together. Anytime there is the exchange of reliable information, there can be the chance of exchanging information that is not reliable. This is the so-called femme fatales fireflies. So fireflies are bioluminescent, and they send certain flashes of signals to, especially the males and females, to lure mates. The femme fatale mimics the flashes of other fireflies so that it can eat the males. Yeah. So, yeah. I love you, Susan. So actually, she not only gets a nutritious meal, she actually gets toxins that make her distasteful to other predators. So she is hijacking this world out there. And regarding biology, like the two major imperatives for living things is survival and reproduction. And so a lot of the signals are around survival and reproduction. But again, anytime there's a signal there is a chance that an opportunist is going to mimic this signal for its own gain. Like, there are so many beautiful examples here. I had a hard time choosing. I'm going to show you one more. This is the bee orchid. And the bee orchid looks and smells like a female bee. So the male goes to an orchid flower and tries to mate with it. It's called pseudocopulation, because he thinks he's mating with the bee, but he's not. And so he goes on to mate with the next bee, but what he's really done is helped the orchid pollinate, right? So the flower has conned the bee into wasting time and energy for its own benefit. On a more serious issue, right? Like, which one of these is venomous? Let me say this again. Which one would you avoid if you saw in the wild?
Red and yellow, kill a fellow. Red and black, okay, Jack.
Okay, so if you're out on a hike and you see this one, are you going to stop and do that little mnemonic in your head and go, wait a minute? It just takes a second for them to go, okay, I won, I'm out. So there's all kinds of mimics. There are many ways to intercept these signals for the benefit of the sender. As the receiver, the goal is to filter the spam. Like, what we want to do is accept what's true and reject what's false. The problem is we are making split-second decisions, like with a snake. And so we need to think fast and decide, do I accept this as true or not? But I cannot say this clearly enough. The goal is not necessarily truth. Our primary goal is survival. So far, this is the big takeaways. Misinformation is a biological strategy. Humans are not the only ones to create and share misinformation for their own benefit. And the goal of communication isn't truth as much as it is influence. So if we want to not fall for misinformation, we need to fine-tune our filters. Okay, so let's back up in time. Here we have an early human on the Savanna. Your brain has never seen the sun. It's never heard the roar of a lion. It's getting signals from the exterior world through its senses, part of them go in through its senses, and then it has to make sense of it. And its goal is, okay, I don't want to be eaten by the lion. That's my primary goal here. So the first step in this information processing is taking this infinite data, filtering it through our senses and our attention. So there is a whole world beyond our senses that we can't see. For example, we can only see within what we call the visible light spectrum, but there are other organisms who can see UV. There are organisms that can hear ultrasound or infrasound. Like elephants famously hears through its feet, so it will pick up sound signals, the sound waves through its feet. Taste, so catfish live in very dark, murky waters where you can't really see. So it's sensing its environment largely through taste receptors on its skin. You know, dogs can smell infinitely more than humans can. The point is, there is a whole world beyond our senses. Our senses, there's so much information out there. Our senses are capturing bits of it. Not only can it only intercept signals within a certain range, it's filtering based on its attention. Like a loud noise, a rustle in the grass. It's something that grabs your attention that your brain thinks that might be dangerous. I should pay attention to it. And then, once it gets into our brains are trying to make sense of it. And it does that by trying to find patterns and making meaning from it. So heuristics are shortcuts, and the patterns, you've heard the rustle in the grass thing, right? Like the famous, if there's a rustle in the grass, and is it a predator or the wind? If you assume it's a predator and it's the wind, you're dead. If you assume it's the wind, Wait a minute, did I say that wrong? Yeah, okay. So if you assume it's the wind, but it's a predator, you're dead. If you assume it's the predator, but it's the wind, you're alive, but you're paranoid. But it's better to be alive and paranoid than it is to be dead. So we're the descendants of those who saw patterns where there weren't any. It is better to see false patterns than to miss real ones. But the problem then is that our brains are constantly finding patterns in data, like celebrities dying in threes, or faces in the grilled cheese, or yeah, like the famous, yeah. So we're constantly seeing patterns where there aren't any. And because of the heuristics, our brains can take deviations and lead us to errors. So Daniel Kahneman's System 1, System 2 is a great way to think about this. In terms of our brains are largely adapted to do this first. Like, this takes a lot of energy. When I talk to my students about this, I love to, like, what's 2 plus 2? That's not a trick question. What's 2 plus 2?
4.
Right. What's 3 plus 5? 8. What's 37 times 124? Okay, now you could do that, but mostly you went, that seems like a lot of work. I don't wanna, right? So our system 2 can think critically, but most of the time what it does is it just takes the automatic stuff system 1 gave to it and goes, yeah, that sounds about right. Now the danger, of course, is using our system 2 not to think critically, but to justify what system 1 wanted to do anyway. Like, for example, I love peanut butter ice cream. Have you ever had Culver's peanut butter custards? Holy beans, they're good. So if I have one in front of me, I will down the whole thing and probably go for a second one. My system 2 knows that's probably not good for me, but system 1 is like, oh, you really want that. So what system 2 does, instead of going, you know, you really shouldn't eat that, it says, you were good today, right? You had a salad for lunch, you worked out, you won't have another one tomorrow. It's using its powers of reasoning to justify what I wanted to do anyway. So as thinkers, we need to be aware of what system 1 might be doing to lead us astray. And instead of using system 2 to go, here are all the reasons why I'm right, check system 1. Wait a minute, is that true? The motivations for the brain are largely the 4 Fs. So fighting, fleeing, feeding, and mating. So the brain wants to keep you safe. It's not necessarily trying to find truth, it's trying to keep you safe and help you reproduce. So to do so, it has these quick shortcuts that it takes to try to keep you safe. So I'm kind of a certain generation, so this is what I think of when I think about the brain's motivations. Do you remember this? The Sprite commercial? No. Oh my God. So it's these actors, and they're on the basketball court, and they're playing, and the camera stops, and they're supposed to be like, you know, these hardcore basketball players, and then they start in this English accent, and they're like, I went to Cambridge, I studied Shakespeare, what's my motivation, right? So, but the point is, you need to know what your brain is trying to do. It's not trying to find truth, it's trying to help you survive and reproduce. I would add a fifth F to this, which is fellowship. As humans, especially historically speaking, we spent the vast majority of our history in small tribes, 150 or less. We knew everyone, we were related to everyone, we trusted them. They were our survival. We could not fight off a lion, find food, reproduce on our own. So we need other people. So far, our filters are optimized for the Savanna, where information was scarce, it traveled slowly, and the goal was safety and belonging. What's changed is the signals. So if this is the environment that our filters evolved in, we now live in this one. To help us visualize this, I created a clock. So this is the all of human history, starting about 300,000 years ago, on a 24-hour clock. Okay? Oh, and what's on it are major advances in communication and information sharing. Okay, so 300,000 years ago, it takes all the way till 6 p.m. for complex language to evolve. We have written language, 1130, the ability to print en masse, the telegraph. No, that was the first one. It's obviously not when we started to use them en masse, but. What really hurts is when I talk to students who were born after 2004, and they don't quite realize just how much things have changed. Like 1 second ago.
I mean, even from the World Wide Web.
Sorry?
Is it even from that 10 years where we first had the World Wide Web, like, Google was a jump, but
Seriously, like this pace of change is almost unimaginable. Our filters are largely the same. We have not evolved that much over this last 5,000 years. What's changed is how much information we're exposed to, and misinformation. So, hominids with smartphones. Right? Did you ever see the movie The Gods Must Be Crazy?
Yeah.
Okay, I think about that so much. Like, imagine someone from an uncontacted tribe getting an iPhone, being like, what the hell is it? It's like magic. So we are not adapted for this. We're adapted for life on the savannah, tribal life on the savannah.
Melanie?
Yeah.
How do you think your clock compares with the doomsday clock?
Oh, jeez. That's an interesting question.
No answer?
No. I'm not going to take that one on. When we look at misinformation this way, though, in terms of the fact that humans are not the only ones to share misinformation, and that we have spent the vast majority of our history evolving in a completely different information ecosystem than we live in today, no wonder we have such a misinformation problem. It's actually a great reminder, I love this, to be kind. Like, falling for misinformation is not a stupid people problem. It's part of being alive, not even just being human. I'm finishing a book on misinformation. I was almost scammed twice while writing the book. So we have the digital lure. The misinformation playbook hijacks our filter. How does it do this? So let me say this. To help us not fall for misinformation, we need to know how misinformation works. But we also need to understand our own vulnerabilities and why we might fall for something. So misinformation has some tells, and it works because it's playing on our vulnerabilities. So it exploits the 4 Fs, right? It's triggering our emotions. It's putting us into this, who do I need to fight? Who am I supposed to be angry at? And when our system 1 is enraged, system 2 has a problem because it doesn't necessarily want to stop system 1. System 1 is trying to keep you alive and safe. It also exploits the 5th F, and in my estimation, this is probably the most dangerous type of misinformation. This us versus them. We're right, they're wrong. We're good, they're evil. Do you know who Henri was? So Henri was a Polish Jew who fought in, I think, for the French in World War II, and ended up in a POW camp for most of the war. After the war, when he got out, he realized most of his friends and family had died in the Holocaust. And he was trying to figure out, how could people do this to each other? What has to make groups so different for people to not only other, but dehumanize and kill? So he set out to find out, using a series of experiments with young boys at a school in England. And what he did was, he started by he showed them dots on a screen and asked them to estimate how many dots were on the screen. And based on that, he put them into either overestimators or underestimators. And then he had them award points to members of somebody in their group and somebody in the other group. His point was, I'm going to start with no differences and then add conditions until I get to a place where the students were willing to favor their in-group and discriminate against the out-group. And what he found was, he did not need to go any further. The number of dots on the screen, and they were random, by the way. They weren't actually put into underestimators and overestimators. He randomly put them into one of the two groups. So he called this the minimal group paradigm. Interestingly, not only with this bare conditions were people willing to discriminate against the out-group, they were willing to take fewer points for their in-group if it meant a bigger difference between their group and the out-group. They just didn't want to have a lot. They wanted to be a lot better than. We identify with our tribe. They are how we get, when our tribe does well, our ego is boosted. And rooting for a team can actually change how we perceive reality. Have you ever watched a game with somebody who's rooting for a different team? They can quite literally see a different game. There are studies on that too. When we are activated into this tribal mode, when there is an us and a them, and it does not take very much for there to be an us or them, it is very easy to convince people to discriminate to other. It's also really hard to disagree with our in-group, right? It's much easier to take on them than it is to take on us, because that was survival. So here are some of the tactics of the playbook. I made this. Can you find some of these tactics? I should add one more. There's what are called God and devil terms. So God terms, they're both vague, but God terms demand obedience, and devil terms you want to oppose. So like freedom, like who's opposed to freedom? Freedom's great, but also what do you mean by freedom? There is a Dodge commercial right now, have you seen it? And it's about like, America is great, buy a Ram. Like literally I'm watching this going, what does this have to do with anything? But it's all America, freedom, Ram. Okay, so what do you think? Oh, conspiracy, oh yeah. Oh, and also the lamestream media is lying to you. Yeah, there's lots of, conspiracy theories are the bedrock. I call it the Tootsie Roll center of a Tootsie Pop of misinformation. Like, how many licks does it take to get there? In misinformation, the further you go, at some point there's gonna have to be an appeal to conspiracy theory. There's really no other way to explain why the vast majority of reliable sources disagree with you, except they're conspiring. Okay, the words in here, though, largely are, they're triggering. You're meant to take a side. You're meant to be angry. Okay, this is the point. Misinformation is not a stupid people problem. Whenever I tell people, almost every time, when I tell people what I do, the conversation goes, oh wow, misinformation, that's such a big problem. Can you believe all of that stuff, all that dumb stuff those stupid people fall for? And the longer the conversation goes on, I need to be more careful, because eventually I've hit what they believe in. Like, one guy thought he was a psychic. One guy believed in dowsing. Like, it's these kinds of We all have a spot. We all have a spot. I wish I knew what mine was. Maybe I wouldn't have it, but it's an all of us problem. Okay, so the misinformation playbook hijacks our critical thinking by hacking our 5 Fs. And once you can see that lure for what it is, it loses its power. I just gave a series of workshops to youth in London, Ontario, and I had them create misinformation like this. I showed them the dress.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
The dress. We know what you're talking about.
And so Team Blue and Black created misinformation about Team White and Gold. And Team White and Gold created misinformation about Blue and Black. And we got done, and it looked a lot like this. And I was like, do you see stuff like this on social media? Oh, yeah. And then afterwards, they'd come up and go, look at this I saw on Instagram or TikTok. It looks just like what we did. Yes. Once you can see these tricks, they lose its power. Okay, the good news is there are solutions. Misinformation exploits our vulnerabilities. It also has certain tactics. So to avoid being fooled, we need to know how it misleads and be especially on guard for those times where it's our particular vulnerabilities. So the solutions. You really need to upgrade your filter, and I'm so sorry, but I have to. Upgrade your filter. Evolution is not going to do this for us, right? It takes a long time. If we want to protect ourselves, the best thing we can do is to fine-tune our own filter. So, thank you for having me here. I really appreciate it. My socials are here online. Any questions? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a tendency, I think, if one or a group hears misinformation enough, they actually believe it. And that, can you comment on that and your filters?
Yeah, that's actually a well-known bias. It's called the illusory truth effect. One of the shortcuts our brain takes is it mistakes fluency for truth. Like, the more we hear something, the more likely we are to just believe it because we've heard it and it's easy to process. Like the famous, have you heard Napoleon was short? You've heard this, right? Okay. He wasn't actually short. He was probably slightly above average height for a Frenchman at the time. Interestingly, and the reason that we believe this is because it's been perpetuated so much. That actually originated from British propaganda during the Napoleonic Wars. The British press were trolling Napoleon, so they would make these cartoons and publish them about this little Napoleon who was a tyrant and throwing temper tantrums. Seriously, we still believe Napoleon was short because of 200-year-old propaganda.
There's also a Mandela effect.
And the complex is not a thing, but he was definitely not short. But yeah, it's one of those, you just hear it a lot, so sure. Any other questions? Yeah.
I'm curious about what scams you almost fell for.
Oh. Okay, the worst was, I was actually on a podcast with Kenny Biddle. The two of us were on his show, and I didn't realize till I got off that my husband was texting me feverishly, like, get over here right now. Okay, what happened was, so on my Facebook account, I have about 75,000 followers. It's not huge, but it's big enough. And I had gotten a notification from Facebook that they were changing its policy somehow, and they needed me to update something. I had seen it, and I'm really lazy about that, so I hadn't done it. One of my moderators also saw it and was like, you need to do this, right? So when I went off to the podcast, I was like, hey, Anthony, can you do this for me? Okay, I was tired. I assumed my mod had done it. Anthony assumed I had done it. There was a lot of assumptions. And what happened was he filled it out, and it was phishing. They had given my credentials to somebody else. They immediately took over my account, locked me out of it, got into my banking information. It was like the scariest couple of hours. So yeah, it happens to the best. And actually there's something else, like misinformation doesn't always work on us. Like there are times that we're more vulnerable than others.